Time for another Oops All Devotees replay from Scarbrand. This time he's taken a Demon Prince, and he's got double Druki Anointed, some Devotees. There is one Devoted Marauder mixed in here. But yeah, we've got 4 melee Devotees, and then 3 with crossbows. And up against the Chaos Dwarf. Super interesting matchup. We're going to talk about why here in just a minute. But speaking of the Chaos Dwarf's build, we've got a Sorcerer Prophet of Death, a whole bunch of chaff, some sneaky gets out on the flank here, making a little maneuver, 4 blunderbusses, including the Granite Guard Regiment of Renown, and yeah, some Orc and Goblin quote-unquote laborers, who looks like even more sneaky gets over on the far side there, so up to 5, yeah, 5 sneaky gets running around. So one interesting thing about this matchup specifically is this right here. 25% missile resistance plus 20% physical resistance means that the missiles of the Chaos Dwarfs are going to do relatively little to the Devotees. Of course, you still don't want to get focus fired, especially by the blunderbusses up close, of course. But now we're going to see the sneaky gets moving in on the one flank here to take on some Devotees. Meanwhile, up in the sky, the Demon Prince of Slaanesh going to tangle with the Sorcerer Prophet. Oh, my mouse is giving me some issues today, guys. Apologize about that. But yeah, the enfeebling foe, Vial of Hashut, withering, lots of resources being pumped into this fight. Demon Prince is going to come hard land on the ground over here, and the Sorcerer Prophet wisely does not pursue. Druki Anointed both could have rear charged in on that fight. Gotten some pretty good value. Yeah, you can see this unit of Devotees, despite their physical and missile resistance, getting absolutely shredded. I mean, granted, they are doing better than something like War Dancers would, but they are quite a bit more expensive. Oh man, just brutal volume of fire on those throwing daggers from the goblins here, hobgoblins even. But despite that, Devotees' leadership manages to hold, and they managed to get a couple of decent engagements here, taking out few of these sneaky gets, moving on to attack the laborers. The one thing here is pressuring the backline with the laborers. Of course, the crossbow Devotees also have dual hand weapons and a decent anti-infantry bonus and can just countercharge in here, and especially like goblin laborers, just absolutely cleave them without too much issue, other than just getting interrupted and not being able to shoot at more high-value targets. But yeah, we're going to see Scarbrand countercharges both of these crossbows, and the goblin laborers not gonna be able to hold much of a candle to them. But checking in now with the heroic situation as well. The Sorcerer Prophet getting pressured by Demon Prince here somewhat. Demon Prince looks like he got onto the ground to try and get some terror routes with Druki Anointed. They're kind of just hanging around here for some extra character pressure. And doing a little bit of AoE damage as well, of course. But, yeah, managed to route away those blunderbusses critically. The other blunderbusses, yeah, the other blusses. They're struggling to get in range to kind of make any meaningful impact here. Bit of shades in the backline there. Does take one of them. Not fully down, but some significant damage being done. Some significant damage also being done to the Demon Prince. Massive focus fire from the blunderbusses. That's Soporific Musk on the Sorcerer Prophets, doing some to help, but that charge bonus is going to get reactivated. He's also on the Lamasu, which is nice, has magic damage, and the non-AP damage won't matter too much against lower armor Slaanesh Lords, so like that quite a bit. But on the ground, he has the advantage of Druki Anointed, although it looks like even still, Demon Prince is going to crumble out as he gets blasted by blunderbusses. But, ooh, the Sorcerer Prophet, lucky he got up into the air there. Looked like on the ground, Lamasu was maybe possibly slower than the Cold One's charge animation. But taking a look here, we've still got some Devotees fighting on the far side. Here in the center as well, just absolutely having a grand old time. Oh, Gordas is here. He's a legendary lord that definitely exists. But, yeah, the Devotees here doing a nice job taking out these blunderbusses, the massive weapon strength that they get with their passive active, up to 50 weapon strength total with 19 AP with that murderous euphoria. Imbuement is weakened as well, so they also reduce enemy weapon strength, which of course helps them survive a little bit better with their 47 melee defense with the missile physical resistance plus a weakened contact effect, which can be stacked with poison, which quite a few units on the Slaanesh roster have, of course. fact, I think, do the Druki Anointed actually have poison? No, but the Hellscourge Marauders do, so, you know, some synergy there. I mean, granted, they're still not going to be nearly as cost-effective as something like Slangors or, you know, anti-infantry options. You have quite a few as Slaanesh, so it's not like necessarily the Devotees are fulfilling a role that you really need, but at least the melee ones. Crossbows, of course, filling a nice niche that was missing before, but we're going to get a nice charge here into the blunderbusses, interrupt them, do some very solid damage, and it's not looking great for the Chaos Dwarfs now. It looks like, what happened to the Lord here? Did he end up getting killed by crossbows? Oop, doesn't matter. Chaos Dwarf's going to throw in the towel there, and Skarbrand will claim victory against Persian Warrior of the ODM clan. Well played to him, you know, facing a very unusual build situation. Did the best that he could, but ultimately Skarbrand coming out on top here. Devotees, yeah, almost 300 kills on one of them, 15,000 damage dealt, 661 value only. I guess they were just butchering through all the chaff here, which, granted, does need to be done, even if it's not the best value trade necessarily, but one of them at least gets 1,200 value on 12,000 damage dealt, which is quite nice. Crossbows also have pretty respectable performance across the board. Some of them didn't end up shooting at super high value targets. I think this one mostly ends up fighting chaff and melee as well, which is fine. That's one benefit of having the decent melee stats, is something like these laborers really just flop. They don't really do anything, even when they do manage to make it to melee. Now granted, huge cost disparity between those units, so again, not most cost effective. Sometimes, you know, the laborers might be able to bog them down and then hit them with AoE magic. And I will say, for Persian Warrior here, that is the main downside of this build, is a complete lack of AoE magic damage. Like, he was really too focused on Spirit Leech. Against Slaanesh, I mean, there's a few different ways you can go, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but the biggest weakness for the Devotees is AoE magic damage, which, you know, definitely is something they have to be careful of. But, yeah, Demon Prince also ends up kind of getting canned a little bit here, but that's fine. Yeah, let's quickly just scan through these values here. One Blunderbuss gets some respectable value. They probably got a lot of damage against the Lord there, and the rest is not great. In terms of AoE magic damage, of course, you have access to Lore of Fire, which is probably the best. The Lore against Slaanesh? Whoop. Them. Chaos Dwarfs, yeah. I mean, Death is okay it's great in a lot of circumstances, to be honest, but, yeah, here, having the Vial of Hashut, actually, I don't think did anything for him, because in that army, there wasn't anything that had innate fire damage. I guess anything besides his pistol, which really doesn't do all that much damage on its own, just adds more weakness to fire, so as it is, you know, Lamasu's is not a bad choice. Like I said, the magic damage, the magic negation, the non-AP is not so much of an issue against Slaanesh, but yeah, Lore of Fire or Lore of Metal would be the ones I would go for in this matchup. Lore of Fire in particular, Burning Head, is incredibly good against any low armor faction, so definitely is one you could consider. Of course, you get Kindle Flame to stack with Vial of Hashut if you actually have something with fire damage, or, you know, I guess you could take Flaming Sword of Ruin and try and go for a self buff on the Lamasu, or, you know, take one of the Taurus mounts instead to actually get fire damage, try and capitalize more on that. It's some really nice synergy, honestly, especially if you're doing, you know, like cheaper spells, Cascading Fire, Cloak, Fireball. Maybe just have Burning Head for some insurance. And then, yeah, hit yourself with a little Cascading Fire Cloak, especially on something like the Bale Taurus. Vial of Hashut, Kindle Flame, everything all together. You know, the pistol as well can add even additional weakness to fire. So stacking all those things together, get up to, what, 60% weakness to fire? And any armor they did have is gone, so, you know, some synergy to consider there. It is quite a bit of spend to go for that, and still quite risky due to the relatively poor combat stats. I say relatively poor. Just some of the upper-level Slaanesh characters could potentially cause you some problems, but, I mean, 540 weapon strength on the Bale Taurus is quite good, so definitely quite scary and expensive, but there you go. Gives you some more single entity stopping power, and some more, especially the AoE damage stopping power, even if you really, really want to stick with Lore of Death. Well, number one is I'd probably just cut the Vial of Hashut if you're on the Lamasu. It doesn't seem like you're getting that much benefit from it. Spirit Leech here is one that you definitely want to have, of course, and then I would probably honestly get Purple Sun It's not a terrible AoE damage spell. Vortexes can be a little bit risky, a little bit hit or miss, just due to the nature of them, you know, going wherever they please. But the initial damage, at least, can be very good, and especially if you get a favorable kind of pathing, can be quite nice. This one also, Chalice of Blood and Darkness, especially for factions which are going to be spamming more lower tier spells, which Slaanesh can. This is a nice one to get some healing, and if every time your opponent casts a spell, now granted you do have to stay close, but the Lamasu does give you some benefit in doing so. Does it actually have a... Yeah, of course you get the 2 bound spells as well, which unfortunately were sort of wasted there. But yeah, silence and negate magic weapons. Okay, so this is maybe a little bit of anti-synergy, actually, with the Chalice of Blood and Darkness and the Lamasu, because if you're up close, you're silencing your opponent, and then you're not going to be getting any benefit of that. Although there's a 100-meter range on this and only a 20-meter range on the silence, so you kind of got to be aware of that if you are going to be using this Chalice of Blood and Darkness, or you could just cut it. And then you've got a kit below 2,000 points with a Monstrous Flying Lord with decent spell loadout, which is actually pretty good, I would say. And yeah, I mean, Infernal Engineer only affects War Machines, so I'd probably cut that as well, since there weren't really any War Machines in that build. But I don't know, I just think you could get some better cost efficiency, and then, I mean, obviously you can't predict that build in particular. You know, it's a fun experiment. I don't know how viable it would be in a really competitive setting. I don't know, maybe you could take someone by surprise, but generally Slaanesh's lack of anti-large means that, like, Kadai, actually, this is one of the more viable matchups for them, probably. Especially if you catch your opponent off guard, they don't have the right tools to deal with it. In that one, crossbows could have caused some problems for sure, but if you had some supporting tools, maybe some light cavalry and other things to kind of tie down the crossbows, then the Kadai could get some pretty serious work done. But let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.